Because when you look at all the variables, it becomes abundantly clear. Don't go to Austin. Come here instead. What's up everyone, it's Gigan here, your favorite real estate agent, and as a lot of our clients ask us so many times, hey, I was actually thinking about going to Austin, or I was actually thinking about going to this location or that location, which are part 2 and part 3 of our next series, but they said I ultimately chose Columbus, Ohio, and a lot of the factors that we look at are usually very similar all across the board. Number 1 is going to be home prices. When looking at how much things are costing in comparison to other locations, it just makes sense that Columbus is the place that you go to. Number 2 is the job availability and the economic growth factors. With multi-billion-dollar companies coming here every single time, well, you're going to look at that and say that's where all the opportunity lies. And number 3 is going to be the education and the strategic proximity, because we have really good schools, really good centralized locations, and ultimately this is going to be the place that you want to call home. So when we look at the economic factors of moving to Columbus versus moving to Austin, there's a few things that are very abundantly clear. First and foremost, let's start with the home prices. In the last few years, it's very safe to say that Austin has had a massive boom. Like this article here, or that article there, or this article here, or this article there. You're seeing so many people talking about Austin being the next central hub. And it is. I love Texas as a whole. When you look at the numerics, and when you look at the numbers of seeing, hey, this is how much this costs versus how much that cost, home prices are abundantly clear. Because Austin's median home prices hovers around $550,000, even more than the national average. Whereas Columbus, Ohio's is only around $280,000. And the affordability factor is outside of just the scope of home prices. To live in Columbus is 30% cheaper than it is to live in Austin, Texas. So when you look at the economics and you look at the numbers, it just makes sense to look at Columbus and say that's where I want to go. Austin has had its growth. When you look in 2005, 2006, and you compare it to what's going on here 20 years later, my goodness, has it grown. And it's a beautiful thing to see, but maybe it grew too much. Well, according to this YouTube video from a real estate professional, Austin has had a massive decline. With the title, Why Everyone is Fleeing Austin as Fast as They Can, with over 1 million views, it talks about why everyone is leaving. From expensive home prices to local politics, it's, well, become kind of abundantly clear that Austin is not what it used to be. Now, I'm not saying Columbus is perfect, quite the contrary. We have our own fair shares of struggle. But when you look purely from an economical factor, because we haven't discussed anything else yet, you're going to see that living here is 30% less, and the cost of property is over 50% less than Austin is. When you have kids and you want to live somewhere and you have all these things that you're thinking about, well, shelter is going to be important. When you're thinking about retiring, shelter is going to be important. When you're thinking about getting a new job, shelter is going to be important. When you're living by yourself, shelter is going to be important. When you have a family, shelter is going to be important. Shelter is always important, and the cost of shelter is critical. So when we look at any other factors, well, there's always going to be subjective notions. Oh, I like these parks, I like the hot, I like the cold. But when you look at an economic factor and you say this is the cost of living, it's a no-brainer. Columbus is better. Now, in terms of the job market and job growth, there's still competition in both of these locations. Because while Austin has definitely had its boom with tech industries, Columbus is definitely catching up. Companies in finance, healthcare, and education all have made Columbus their home. It really has become a central hub for a lot of diversification that exists. And I'm going to get back to that in a second. But specifically, companies like JP Morgan, Chase, Nationwide, and Honda have created a really good economic stability and employment-based opportunity. Let's talk about diversification, because diversification is vital. When you think about diversification from the perspective of, well, GDP, when you think about it from the perspective of economic standpoint, you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. Because let's say, for example, all of your eggs were in one basket. Tech, for example. And then tech just happens to go awry, or there's a new governmental regulation or a new change. Well, then what's going to happen? The economic stability of the location then begins to wiggle, and that's the last thing that you want. So in the same idea of, well, not putting all your eggs in one basket, it's also really important that the economic stability and the factors that are going into the economics are all diversified, and you don't just have one sector that has too much dominant control. And the other factor as well is the unemployment rate. Columbus's unemployment rate hovers around 3.4%. whereas Austin's tends to fluctuate every here and there, and there's no real number that's specifically associated with it. For me, personally, I would rather know that there's a specific number allocated and associated with a location versus having to guesstimate and figure out this is going to be this one day, this is going to be that next week. That would kind of like clog my mind. So knowing that we have a low unemployment rate is a factor that a lot of people look at. When you go to places like even California, San Francisco, for example, when you go anywhere, let's take a central hub like Seattle, for example. You want to make sure that when you're in Seattle, you have the opportunity to get a job because you can't afford a house and then you can't afford groceries. So that's why the job factor is going to play a massive role in, number one, your ability to afford a house, and number two, you deciding on making a move anywhere. But if you are in this tech sector, don't worry, because according to this article here, the Smart City Columbus initiative is a $140 million initiative aimed at transforming Columbus into a model for smart city solutions. It's just one example of what the city is doing to actually grow and incentivize tech opportunities. In the link below, I'm going to have a video where we talk about the Intel development project, the Merchants Building as well, because there is a lot of growth that is still continuously happening in this location. And I think that all plays a massively beautiful factor. And it's not just billion-dollar projects, there's also startups that are happening here as well. If you want me to go to one of these meetings where you talk about startups and have initiative programs, well, I'd be happy to. Just let me know in the comment section below. If you are thinking about making a move to Columbus or anywhere nearby as well, we actually connect and partner with local agents here all across. So all of our information is gonna be down below in the description. I would love the opportunity to collaborate, chat, figure out anything that you can do and take you exactly where you need to go. But besides that, the other factor that's considered is quality of life. Because whereas Austin has its appeal with vibrant cultures and vibrant music, Columbus just has a broader lifestyle that appeals to more people. But at the same time, that's not to say that we don't have our own cultural scenes and expeditions as well. The Short North Art District is one of the most vital and vital things that we have, possessing a ton of artistic opportunities, galleries, and just, well, a lot of festivities that go on with it. Unlike Austin that's dealing with overpopulation and overcrowdedness, Columbus isn't dealing with that yet. So that means you have to truly enjoy the activities and not be bombarded with people left and right. Our traffic is still pretty bad, but with I-70 and I-71 still struggling, we understand that. And that's something that definitely has to play a role in you making a move here. But if you have the opportunity to work remote and you don't take the car as much, things of that nature, well, then we're going to be fine. And that gives us the ability to enjoy parks, recreations, and just be outside. And obviously, all of that is going to play a massive factor. What's the art? What's the culture? What's the food scene like? How about parks? And for those that love the outdoors, well, I mean, we've got the outdoors. Can you actually show some of the best parks that we have in 3, 2, 1, roll it. Yeah, and we have a ton of parks and recreational opportunities as well, as including the Mosquito Miles, a 175-acre greenway that connects downtown to lush landscapes and provides ample space for recreation and relaxations. Columbus also has its diverse neighborhoods, from Dublin, New Albany, to so many more that we're going to discuss. There's so many opportunities for you to pick exactly what vibe associates with you and where you want to go. I use the word vibe pretty loosely. Just figure out where you want to live, figure out people that have similar ideas and goals and aspirations, and just live there. You know what I mean? But live anywhere that you want, because I think that's the cool thing about Columbus is it's a microcosm of different individuals collaborating here together. Now, in terms of education, which is going to play a massive factor, I mean, both Austin and Columbus are absolutely awesome. More specifically than not, we have the Ohio State, one of the most recognized, well-respected educational platforms in the entire country. We have people that come here every single day just to go to OSU, and one of the most unique things about OSU is the sense of camaraderie. Going to a Buckeyes game, listening to the roar of the crowd, it feels unique and feels different. And really, that sense that you get with people, well, I mean, you're not gonna get that anywhere else. Whereas Austin, it looks like it's still finding its voice, it's still finding its location and what makes it unique. With such a mass overpopulation in such a small time horizon, well, the educational systems themselves really are not quite there where they need to be. But that's not to say it's still not fantastic. I mean, colleges near Austin, especially Dallas and Houston, are still places that absolutely have some of the best ranked colleges in the entire country. And even closer to home, going to places like the farmers market, the neighborhood associations, and just local events, it makes me personally feel like this is where I want to be. And when you think about these things, and you're thinking about where exactly you want to go to, I want to go to a place where I know that I am happy. I want to go to a place where my job itself isn't the only reason that I'm there. This definitely has its own contrast to places that are more transient and that tend to have a lot more people moving there there versus just the locals themselves. Now, the one final thing and caveat to both of these places is the location. Columbus is only about a day's drive away from 60% of the nation. Austin itself is not quite there, but with it being located almost smack dab right in the middle of the country, I mean, there's places to go both left and right, up and down, with Mexico right there as well. So in terms of accessibility and in terms of what is actually being able to foster, both of these places definitely have accessibility to other locations as well. So when you are making a decision between both of these locations, understand what you're looking for. What is the vibrancy of both these locations? What about the cost of living? Where are you comfortable with? What job sector are you looking for? Do you just want to go one specific sector, or are you looking for maybe other opportunities as well? What about the sense of camaraderie and community? And the education? Are all these things important? If you want a young, hipstery vibe, well, go to Austin. If you want something a lot more centered and grounded, well, maybe Columbus is the right place for you. Both of these places definitely have their own unique, idiosyncratic things that make them separate and awesome. The reason I like Columbus so much more is simply because it feels like home. Thank you so much for watching this. Really appreciate you being here. If we can help you move anywhere, we partner with fantastic agents all across the national market. We'd love the opportunity to collaborate, answer any questions you have. Let us know in the comments below. Appreciate you watching this. Like, subscribe, comment. Thank you so much for being here. With that being said, it's Gagan, your host. See you in the next one. Peace.